Hello and welcome to Quartzlight, your car brochure channel. Today we're going to be looking at the Nissan Bluebird. Hello, welcome back. In Quartzlight, if you're new to the channel, we look at car brochures from around the world 3 times a week. So I hope you enjoy watching that as much as I enjoy making these little small brochure review videos. Anyway, today we're going to be looking at the Nissan Bluebird. This brochure is a UK brochure from 1987, looking at the 1988 model year. So let's have a look at that straight away. So here we go, the first glimpse of this brochure, and the brochure itself is in pretty nice condition, really, considering its age. We've got this flat red Bluebird on here, and what can I say about the design? It was very square, kind of like quite old-fashioned really when you look at things like 1988, things like the Sierras and the Sierra Sapphires. It was quite an elderly looking design, but it really got a reputation as being an extremely reliable car, and I think Nissans at this age were even more reliable than they are today. I think even Toyotas, they seem to be almost like the peak time really for these Japanese cars. Superb reliability, very well built, and surprisingly they also got a really good reputation for resisting rust. They didn't seem to rust particularly readily, which was surprising. So a really fantastic long-term ownership car, even though it wasn't exactly an exciting car to drive. The thing I remember mainly about the Bluebird is when my dad could pick his company car out. You know, he could pick things like the, a Sierra, the Vauxhalls, the Fords, and the BL, British Leyland cars. This was also on that list. He worked for British Gas at the time. He could only pick cars that were built in Britain, and the Nissan Bluebird was on that list. He didn't pick it. He actually ended up with a Sierra Sapphire, but I always remember it being on that list and being sort of like it's an interesting little car, unusual car to be on his company car list, I thought at the time. But anyway, enough waffle. Let's open this brochure up and see what's inside. So a lovely opening page showing the plant, and we are going to read some of that text because it is quite interesting, and it tells you, this is built in Britain in Tyne and Wear, so it is an interesting little bit of a introduction to the Bluebird, and also showing these top of the range executive models there at the bottom. But let's zoom in and read some of this text. So it starts off by saying the new 1988 Bluebirds provide right across the range the most exciting specification package the British car market has ever known, because every Bluebird saloon and hatchback, besides being a quality product and high refinement, performance and dependability, now has a level of luxury fittings unmatched by any other manufacturer. For your extra comfort and enjoyment, even the basic LS model has an electric tilt and slide sunroof, electric windows front and rear, central locking, stereo, radio cassette with 4 speakers, and electric aerial, plus tinted windows and tilt adjusting steering, all as standard fittings. So that was also very much one of the Bluebird's key features. It got all this equipment. If you just compare another model, for example, my dad got that Ford Sierra. It's the 1.8L. He did have a sunroof, but it was a manual sunroof. It certainly didn't have electric windows front and rear. It didn't have central locking. It didn't have an electric aerial. For the same sort of money as this Bluebird, you got all that extra equipment, and I think that is one of the key things. The Japanese market was very clever. These Japanese manufacturers adding these little extra things. So you went to your showroom, you looked around your Ford or your Vauxhall dealer or your British Leyland dealer, you saw what you got. You went to Nissan dealer, you might think, this isn't quite an exciting car to drive, but a lot of people aren't really looking for exciting cars to drive. They see all them little, extra fitments and fittings on these Japanese cars, and you thought, well, you know, I would appreciate, you know, electric windows more than I would, you know, high speed going around a corner. So, you know, I can understand why they did sell, and they sold extremely well, actually, did the Bluebird. And it says, and the higher up the range you go, the more luxury has been added, so that with the top of the range Bluebird Executive, you travel in superb hand-stitched Connolly hide upholstery and every convenience we could think of, including an air-conditioned interior. You know, air-conditioned cars in the UK, round the rest of the world, oh, air conditioning, so what? But in the UK, that was, you know, you didn't really get many models that had air conditioning on them. Appropriately, these new model Bluebirds are all made in Britain to the highest ever equipment levels specified by Nissan, a company respected the world over for its quality of build and engineering. Goes on to say, and the level of British and European components and parts used in manufacturing these Bluebirds has reached the stage they are no longer imports but are classified as British in exactly the same way as other UK based manufacturers. And it was interesting because, you know, it was one of these early cars that was, you know, sent in sort of knockdown kits to the UK to be built. And in the UK, they built them to that same sort of high standard. It was still a well-made, reliable vehicle, even made in the UK. It wasn't the first. I mean, if we think about things like the Triumph Acclaim, that was a similar sort of thing. So it improved that we could make well-built, reliable vehicles in Britain, which was an important thing. It goes on to say the exceptional quality achieved by the Nissan factory in Tyne and Wear has already been praised by the motoring and industrial press, and is reflected in the high resale value of Bluebirds, which exceeds by hundreds of pounds its rival in the family and business car sector. It finishes by saying the 1988 British Bluebirds depicted in this brochure offer you more value, more luxury, more reliability and more motoring enjoyment, whichever of the 19 models you choose. They are set to provide yet another sparkling chapter to the Bluebird success story in Britain. And then it starts looking at the models proper, starting with the Bluebird LS, the bottom of the range at this time, in a colour that I kind of thought that pretty much nearly every Bluebird was in this, like a blue colour, certainly in my memory anyway. I know there was lots of whites as well, and indeed on the next page it shows one in white, but I think this was a extremely popular colour, this particular blue. And like I said, it is a well equipped car considering it is the base model. Clearly see the sunroof, which it said before is an electric sunroof, so high spec really for a very basic, what appears to be a basic car, you know, the bottom of the range car. Indeed, when you look at Ford, they really like to shout it in your face that here you've got a poverty spec car. Nissan didn't look at it like that. They wanted everyone to have, you know, a few little treats in their car. We'll have a quick look at this dash, although it's only a very small picture, and then we'll look at some of the text. Now, I wouldn't say the Bluebird has got the nicest looking interior. Again, like the outside, the interior looks a little bit, dare we say, a little bit cheap. But obviously it's very functional and everything works in it, which is, you know, the key thing about the Nissan Bluebird really. And, you know, lots of equipment for a base model car. I mean, just look at that little stereo in there for a base model car. It's quite nice. We'll look at some of the text as well. It starts off by saying the new British Bluebird range starts with the 1.6 LS, available as a 4-door saloon or 5-door hatchback, with a list of equipment which is quite exceptional, and Nissan's commitment to producing the best quality available in the UK has resulted in a car which provides a smooth, comfortable ride, excellent all-round visibility and refined high-speed driving. The superior level of equipment built into the LS includes electric windows, both front and rear, central locking, electric aerial for convenience and for security, an electric tilt and slide tinted glass sunroof so that the open air can be enjoyed at the, and we'll have to turn the page, touch of a button, and a digital three-way band blank pucked stereo radio cassette mated to 4 speakers for high quality in-car entertainment. And it carries on telling us more and more about all these different features, and then we get if we pull back, we got the page proper, pictures and images of all these little features, and we'll have a quick look at some of these little images. The main picture though is your 5-door, your hatchback version, this time in white. But anyway, let's have a look at some of those images. Yeah, most are quite self-explanatory, aren't they? Really, a little cubby box in the centre there. This sort of like little net on the back of seats to hold maps or whatever you want in there. Practical hatchback in this case, you know, with this split fold seat and quite a low cutout sill to lift things into. Your rear wiper, take it for granted today, but of course not all cars had that. Electric windows, again, you know, front and rear as well, quite a lot for a base model. Showing the aerial, which is electric as well. These what look like quite nice supportive seats, and this electric sunroof. We then move up to one step up, the Bluebird GS, again showing as a hatchback in this sort of silver colour, and as a saloon over in this red colour. There is a nice actual colour chart at the end of this brochure which will show you some interesting things about the colours. One thing though is about the colours, they didn't have any sort of fancy name, so this would have been just silver metallic, and this, the colour is red. So no fancy colour names in the Bluebird range. Just looking visually at it, you can certainly see straight away we've now got these colour coded bumpers, and you know, instead of black door handles, we've now got this sort of like chrome looking at least handles. But there is more equipment. We'll have a quick look at some of this text and some of these pictures. We're not going to read it all though, otherwise we'd be running out of time. A bit of an introduction when it says the new Bluebird 1.8 GS offers motoring the combination of a luxurious equipment car built with meticulous attention to detail, and it says there's an option of a 5-speed gearbox or a 4-speed automatic, and it starts saying, you know, there's a saloon or a hatchback version. And then over here it says the GS has an impressive value for money equipment of the LS models, together with additional items for your comfort and convenience. So it's saying it's got this variable ratio power assisted steering. It's telling us it takes the strain out of parking and manoeuvring in tight spaces. Twin electric remote control door mirrors are heated, and then, you know, a higher quality stereo, etc. And we will look at all these different specifications later on in the brochure. Seats, in this case we've got this sort of like a blue seat colour, and the dashboard, which looks pretty much the same as the previous model. If we go down, there's another image of that red Bluebird GS. More seat images, and they do look quite comfortable seats actually. And tells you your electric windows and your electric sunroof picture again. And then we move up further to this model called the Bluebird GSX. Interesting straight away, this first image here is got like a two-tone Bluebird. This is metallic, I think it's light metallic blue it calls it. Underneath that's a dark metallic blue, or it looks black but it's actually a dark metallic blue. That colour combination is only available on the GSX, and the only two-tone colour is that light blue and dark blue metallic, interestingly enough. So that's kind of like an interesting, you don't have to get two-tone, there are other colours as you can see you can get it in, but if you wanted a two-tone Bluebird you had to get your GSX, and you had to have just those colours. And you can see we've now got a colour coded door mirror on there as well, and we'll see some of these features as we move up the range. Obviously there's more equipment again, so let's have a look at this now. 2-litre Bluebird. So it's saying with the new 2-litre GSX, Nissan has introduced a powerful 1974cc car with a level of specification usually associated with cars twice the price. It tells you a little bit about the engine, it tells you it's available as a 4-door or a 5-door again, and it gives you some idea of some of the equipment. Yeah, we've got alloy wheels now, and we've got these seats which are finished in what he calls luxurious material. We'll have a look at that in a moment as well. And he talks about the head restraints, etc, etc. There is those seats in that luxurious material. They do look a little bit nicer, don't they? Another glimpse at the interior, and we get the backs of those luxurious seats, your sort of electrically adjusted heated door mirrors, your electric windows again, and other little features. And these are your head restraints, and now we've got this like adjustment on them. Then we get to the sporty Bluebird, the often forgotten about ZX. Here featured in this red colour as a hatchback, but also as a saloon. I don't remember them as saloons actually, so I'm sure that saloon is quite a rare car today. But of course the hatchback looks a little bit more sporty, which I think is why I remember seeing them more often. You can see the twin exhausts at the back there. So let's have a look at some of the features of the ZX. So what it's telling you is the ZX is a thoroughbred sports car powered by a 1.8 litre injected turbocharged engine. It's saying it's 135 brake horsepower, top speed 120, 0 to 60 a little over 8 seconds. So it wasn't really a fast car by any stretch of the imagination, but a pretty unusual car, and I'm sure it's a quite rare car today. We're not going to read all this text, but basically it's telling us things like you got a turbo boost gauge on there, etc, but it's still practical. Here's another little bit of a glimpse at that ZX saloon in black, and then we get some nice little interior shots. These unusual seats, these 2-colour seats which are unusual. This dash with a couple of extra gauges on there, and that's sort of a more sporty steering wheel. And there is the engine. Then we go from kind of like one extreme to the other. We go from that sporty car to this fuel efficient diesel. I don't really remember the Bluebird diesels that well, although the Bluebird was very popular as a taxi, a private taxi. So I imagine the diesel version would maybe fit in that sort of niche. It's telling us on here, like I said, we're not going to go into great detail here, but it tells us on here the power unit of the 2-litre D, which will return around 50 miles per gallon at a steady 56. So purely, your economical option if you was doing a lot of miles. And like I say, I would imagine that would be a pretty good car as a taxi. But a lot of the petrol versions were used as taxis as well, I seem to remember. And then we get to the executive, kind of like you love it or hate it sort of body kit on there. I'm not really too sure about that, to be honest, and these kind of like love it or hate it wheels, I guess, as well. But this is like your top of the range Bluebird, which they tried to say this is what you aspired to, but I must admit I preferred the other models. But let's have a look at some of the equipment on there. So let's just zoom in on the text and then we'll come back to the images. Individually styled and carefully crafted, the new Nissan Bluebird Executive is the most luxurious car in its class. The flagship of a range of cars made in Britain by a company which leads the world in its excellence of build. Power comes from Nissan's acclaimed 1809 turbocharged engine, which provides a top speed of more than 120 miles per hour. Acceleration from 0 to 60 takes just over 8 seconds. And it tells us, we've got this hand finished soft leather of the highest quality is used throughout the interior. The rally seats, sporty 4-spoke steering wheel, front and rear head restraints, armrest, gear knob, gaiter, etc, etc, etc. So it's kind of like didn't really know what it wanted to be really. You usually have like a sporty model and then a luxurious model. This is trying to be both sporty and luxurious, I guess. There's lots of equipment information on there, although we'll come back to that and we'll have a look at the specifications, all the equipment. The images, yeah, the nicest part about the Executive is the interior. It does look very nice. Leather seats, actually, those. Interior, well, it pretty much looks the same as the rest of the range with more equipment on there. Although you've got that sporty steering wheel, a little bit of a shot at how you would listen to the music in this as like compact disc type player. Then we have a look at these folding seats. This is the black one, so that's your saloon. It's still got a bit of a sort of folding seat design, so you can at least pass things through the boot. And of course then your more practical your more practical hatch with the folding seats. Then we get the images of both the hatchback and the saloon. If we can tune that in a little. So there we go, the hatch and the saloon. And the saloon, well, it's hard to say there, but going back to colours as well, it just looks black. But the Executive, actually, if you chose the black, it was actually black metallic, and that was the only car you could get in black metallic was the Executive model. So that's a bit of an unusual colour as well. Then we get the estates, which were a little bit different, weren't they? The Bluebird GL and DX estates. And I guess we should probably just zoom in on that front end because it looks very different, doesn't it? As an estate, that front end looks very different. And as far as I know, these weren't actually built in Britain, these were built in Japan. So if you wanted your Bluebird built in Japan, you had to go for this estate model. So unusual having this rather different model as the estate, I think. Almost feels like it doesn't really quite fit in right. The other unusual thing about the estate, again going to the colour, this red colour was only available on the estate, and it's a very nice colour, isn't it? But you can only get that if you did actually get the estate. We'll have a look at some of the wording here. And obviously really what it's going to be talking about is, what it's there for and why you want an estate. You want an estate so you could carry things in, and that's kind of like what it's really telling us. So it starts by saying the Bluebird estates have been designed for maximum carrying capacity and real comfort for driver and passenger. It's telling us it's powered by this 2-litre engine, etc, etc. But if we go to the images, rather like a plain white seats in this case. That interior, which does look different, and you've got this sort of very basic radio on this particular example. So if you wanted your poverty spec one, go for this. Go for this DX estate, I guess. Again, it's showing these split folding seats, which look like you could recline them as well. And the practicality of that load space, although you did get, lose quite a bit with these struts, didn't you, on the Bluebird? And then we get to the Bluebird equipment and specifications. So we'll go down there so we'll be able to compare what is on each model. Okay, so it starts off with dynamics, goes to exterior features, etc, etc. You can see the models at the top, so the LS, GS, GSX, that diesel, the ZX, the Executive, and them a little bit different, them Estates, the DX and the GL. And you'll certainly see when you look at the Estates, the DX and GL, they are equipped differently. So things like, you know, I was talking about electric windows all round, that isn't on the Estates. And you know, your radio, your nicer radio, which is even on the LS, a very basic equipment on the GL Estate, and even more basic on the DX. So if you wanted your very basic poverty spec Bluebird, you had to go for that Estate DX, although at least you did get a 2-litre engine with it. Anyway, enough wittering on. I'm just going to go through this. I'm not going to talk too much more, but if you do want to pause the screen at any time, you certainly can do. And then once we've been through all this, we'll look at that colour range. So your colour range, which actually was quite a nice sort of colour range you could actually get on your Bluebird. Not very imaginatively named, was it? But nevertheless, quite nice colours you can get. That dark red metallic, that's your only on the Estate model. And then if we go down, there's more colours. And then if you go down further, it just looks black, but the black metallic there is only available on the Executive. And then that mix of light blue metallic and dark blue metallic only available on that GSX version. And there's this little kind of like graph telling you all that there. And then at the bottom there, this is kind of like your date code for this particular brochure. You can just about make out 1187, meaning November 1987. So there we go, this video's gone on a little bit longer than expected, so we'll wrap it up there. But certainly, if you've got any memories of the Nissan Bluebird, please do jot that in the comments. Also, if you got this far in the video, please consider clicking that like button. And also, if you don't want to miss future episodes, please consider subscribing. Anyway, we'll say for now, thank you so much for watching. Please do take care. We'll see you soon, and goodbye.